can't even tell you how many times I've just recorded myself saying hello. It's getting a bit ridiculous now. So we're just gonna start here. Hello, my name is Amy and welcome back to my channel. Today is the 1st of January 2023 and I have been doing a lot of reflecting recently, both with what I've been making, but also kind of in work, in life, business and all the rest of it. So I thought I would start recording. It's probably going to be a couple of videos sort of talking about these reflections. I thought we would start with knitting. Last year I did something similar and kind of reflected on my makes for that previous year. It was mainly sewing and knitting related. This time I'm not going to talk about any sewing, mainly because I haven't really done any sewing. Last year was a weird transition out of me sewing for myself. I started sewing more for work as a freelancer, and therefore kind of didn't then really want to spend my weekends sewing for me. And then I also have sold all of my sewing stuff, so I no longer have any sewing machines, and I've got no studio space for it. So yeah, it's mainly going to be about knitting to begin with, or at least in this video we're going to start with knitting, and then I would love to talk to you about my sort of spinning and weaving journey this year. When I started 2022, I only had a drop spindle and a really basic frame loom, and now yeah, it feels like a full-time spinner and weaver. I've got a proper spinning wheel, I've got 2 more looms on top of that frame loom. So yeah, that's become a really big part of my life. But yeah, I thought we would start with knitting because that's kind of where we've been before. I'm horrendous at taking notes, so on what I've made. So I've had to like go through, my photos, my Instagram, which didn't take very long, various notepads and just various boxes and bags to see like what have I actually made this year. And when I look around, there's not very many complete objects. There's mainly, quite a few works in progress. I was hoping that I was going to get into podcasting last year, but that didn't really happen, mainly because I didn't really feel like I had the creative energy, bandwidth to do that. And yeah, life was just a little bit crazy. So let's count this. This is almost going to be like a podcast episode, but don't worry because it's not going to be hours long because I haven't actually made that much stuff in the last year. So figure out where to begin. When I kind of like look back through in my journal and sort of like thought about what I'd been making and sort of how I'd felt about my projects, I think I had a bit of a funny relationship with knitting this year. I really rely, or knitting for me is kind of relaxation. It's what I'm doing in the down times. It's what I want to be doing whilst watching TV or like in the morning, the first cup of tea. That's what I want it to be, is that kind of just kind of thing. And what I was finding was that all the projects I was working on, I just kept hitting like challenge after challenge. And so what I ended up doing is just sort of having loads of projects started that then had become insurmountable. I think that's the right word. And so then I would just start something else, start something new. I realised the other thing that made it challenging was because I got more into spinning, when I realised that I could spin to knit, because there was a bit of a wake-up call that I had where I realised that I could actually spin that quantity to say make a jumper, because I thought that was going to take, you know, weeks, but actually, you know, I can spin a jumper quantity in a week, you know, in a matter of days. So realising I could spin everything that I wanted to then knit, and then also when I first started knitting with my handspun and seeing actually like the quality's already there, like it sort of, I then what do they say, like made a rod for my own back. Like I then sort of went, well, I'm not going to buy any yarn because I can make everything, you know, I can start with raw materials and make everything exactly how I want it. But then that kind of brought its own set of complications, namely that, you know, then I would find that I was always struggling with gauge. I would kind of, you know, go, well, I'm going to make something like this for this pattern, and then I wouldn't really make it to spec, but I'd still really like the wool and I'd like the swatch, and I'd just then make it anyway, like try knitting it anyway. But because my gauge was so far off, that then made everything really challenging. So I've got a couple of projects like that where it's just, you know, you're almost having to just make up the pattern and kind of only really use the pattern as very loose guidelines, which is not relaxing. And then what happened was I started trying to build a business out of spinning wool, so selling yarn and selling woven stuff, which then meant that I couldn't really allow myself the time to spin for my own knitting projects, because there's only so much capacity, spinning capacity I have. You know, I've worked out, you know, it's sort of, I can spin for maybe 3 hours a day, more like, you know, 2 hours. So I kind of, all that spinning capacity had to go on a business rather than on my own knitting projects. So I've got a project that I started and then ran out of Handspun and then just didn't prioritise it again. So yeah, it's been a funny one. I did end up sort of giving in a little bit and buying some yarn so that I could keep knitting. But yeah, it's, I don't know, you know, when you sort of realise that you've made your life harder by your own kind of rules or aspirations or whatever. That's what happened to my knitting this year. Right, I've split the list of stuff into socks and not socks, and I think the socks is a big one. I rewatched that part of my reflections video from last year. I rewatched the bit about socks, and like there's so much stuff there where I'm like, oh, I've noticed this, I'm thinking about this, I wonder what's going to happen. While I now have quite a lot to share about how it's gone. So this is, I sort of had a bit of a mission around both trying to like explore what sock yarns did I really like. This was sort of trying to aim for non-superwash, no nylon, natural sock yarns. And also I was trying to work out what the right recipe was for me, in terms of, you know, the gauge, the fit, but also the toe shaping, toe box, because I really wanted these to be proper everyday socks, not just house socks. So yeah, I've got quite a lot to say on that topic, which I think might be part 2. Today I think I'm just going to do the non-sock related stuff. I thought we would start with a finished object, because I did actually make a thing. So this here, I call this my gardening vest. So I try and only make for what I need. So I work part-time as a gardener all year round, and I was really struggling last winter with just being so cold. You know, I would try and put on all these layers. You know, I would be wearing like this, you know, a merino base layer. I'd have a woolly jumper on, a fleece, and then a coat. And I would still get cold. And so what I wanted was another layer which I could just have on my body, on my torso, rather than on my arms. Because I just, yeah, you kind of just, for me, it's that extra layer, you know, it's sort of like lower back, trying to make sure that that stays warm. So I wanted a really thick, warm vest. It helped that I'd been seeing, you know, all these vests popping up online. I just thought that they were really cool as well, and I thought, well, yeah, I could make something that, you know, would be practical for gardening, but kind of, you know, practical every day as well. I spent ages looking at different patterns. This is quite a long time ago, so I'm not sure I can quite give the rationale of why I chose what I chose. But I chose a mashup of two patterns. So the actual, I'm just looking at my notes so I get it right. The actual like shape of the vest is vest number 1 from My Favourite Things Knitwear, and then the actual stitch pattern, this texture, is from sweater number 18. It is knit out of this is like, I don't think I would have chosen to do this now. It is knit out of 2 strands of West Yorkshire Spinners Jacobs DK. 2 strands of DK, and it's knit at quite a tight gauge. So it really is incredibly thick. Like, I'll weigh this for you. I had to keep going back and buying more yarn because I think I based it on, you know, the yardage for vest number 1, and just it was not that. So yeah, it was a challenge to do the mashup. I'm not sure I'd recommend it, and I'm not sure I could recreate it. I kind of just winged it. So yeah, but I'm really pleased with how it came out. At first I was a little bit worried about how stiff it was, but it's kind of one of those things where it's, you know, it has softened up with wear. Also with blocking, this stitch pattern sorts itself out. Like when you first finish it, it's really, you know, it's all kind of squeezed up together. But with a good blocking and sort of like encouraging it to sort of sit flat, the fabric sorts itself out. I'm trying to think what else to say. So it has got a lot of wear, and obviously now that we're kind of back in winter again, I think I've been wearing it the last 2 months really, and it works perfectly, and I really enjoy wearing it underneath one of my woolly jumpers, like a lightweight woolly jumper. It just sort of holds it all in, like traps all of that air. The only thing that I'm wondering whether to change is the neck. So I don't know how I cast this off. It's one of those ones that, like, it looks like it rolls over. So is that tubular or Italian, or is that the same thing? I'm really not great with my cast-ons and cast-off. But anyway, it does, like, I can get it over my neck, over my head, but it just has a slight kind of feeling, you know, it sort of is sat a bit up here and a bit tight at times. So I am wondering whether to redo this. I'm not sure what I would change though. I don't know whether, you know, I just need to come, you know, take a few rows out, make it narrower. Maybe it's a different type of cast off. Maybe I should do one of those kind of like rolled necks things, just so that there is no pressure at the neck. But it's obviously not bothering me enough to do something about it. So although saying that, in the last video, I talked about this as one of my finished objects. So this is the Forager sweater by Melody Hoffman. This in Plutalope and Silk Mohair. And I talked about the neckline in this video. This is the opposite problem. Like this, you know, was already sat quite open, and then what I understand now is jumpers where you cast on at the neck and then knit down, there's no stability, like there's nothing kind of holding it rigid. Like it sort of is very easy for this to just open out, and so this neck has just been getting wider and wider. So I am wondering, well, I was wondering in the last video whether to re-knit this, and I haven't. So yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things, isn't it? that you never actually do. So yeah, tight neck, loose neck. I think that's all I've got to say about this. It's great, but yeah, not sure I would do it again, or not. I think what I understand now is that you don't need to, like, holding 2 strands of DK that isn't a lofty DK to begin with just means that you've got a really dense yarn. You know, that bit of yarn is just really, really dense. What would have made more sense, and actually maybe that's the next thing I'm going to talk to you about, is to start with a yarn that's loftier and then pack that in, and then you're trapping all of that air. So I'll show you the next one and we can compare. So I mean, it basically looks like I've made the same thing. So this is another vest. This started as, get the name right, the Holiday Slipover by Petite Knit. I can't even explain why did I need another slipover pattern when I already had the My Favourite Things one. But I guess there probably was some style line differences, or the gauge was different or something. Anyway, I decided to try the Holiday Slipover. Actually, I think, yeah, the Holiday Slipover has got a much deeper armhole. So it is quite different. I think the gauge is much bigger. So I wanted to make a lighter version of this that was a bit more kind of, I was gonna say like fashion-y, but that sounds like I don't really care about fashion. What do I mean? I think I mean more like kind of will just go with my normal clothes, whereas that one, like, I knitted it quite long so that it would cover my lower back, so it kind of, I don't know, it maybe like cuts just like the top of my bum, halfway down my bum, not too sure, but it's quite long and I find it difficult to wear with high-waisted things, and it sort of is quite, it pulls in around my hips, whereas I wanted a more lightweight vest that was a bit more cropped and a bit more kind of oversized. Yeah, it's hard, isn't it, to try and justify the decisions that you made months ago. This is why I should podcast properly. So the yarn that we're using. So this, I'll show you the back because then we can actually see it properly. So this is actually handspun yarn, my handspun yarn. It's the yarn that I talk about in my previous video. So I did a video talking about getting this fleece, getting the raw fleece from the farm. It's a Jacob's Cross, and what I did to process it, and kind of what I then was playing around with in terms of weaving and then knitting with it. So that is this yarn. I mean, I just absolutely love the variations. Like, that's not deliberate, that's just that striping and streaks of colour. That's just the natural fleece. That's just me just grabbing clumps and just, yeah, letting the fleece dictate what colour comes next. But yeah, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that this isn't a slipover, and this is definitely not the holiday slipover. So I made most of that vest. I think I was up to the, it's got like a split hem, and I think I was just doing the split hem or something like that. And I tried it on, and I just didn't like the way that bottom half of it was basically sat like between my waist and my hips. I just really wasn't liking it at all. And I couldn't, again, this is a project then, I hit this challenge, it went back in a bag, and it sat there for about 2 months before I could, like, had the headspace to figure out what to do. In the meantime, I then had seen, I saw a pattern, and I think it's called the Burgos? Okay, I've checked it. It is. I'm gonna go Burgos. Burgos? It's Portuguese. By Rosa Pomar. I'm so sorry. I've never heard that name before said out loud. So that's my guess. Yeah, I saw a couple of versions of that vest, and I just really, really liked it. I liked the way that it was kind of that oversized, sort of boxy structured thing that kind of then just sat, I'm trying to point at my waist, like the way that it just sort of sat in the samples. I was like, that's what I'm after. So sort out the light a bit. So I decided to just stop with the holiday slipover. I think I also liked the idea that if I did this button-up vest, then it actually gave another point of difference to this one, because then I could actually wear it buttoned, or I could have it open. Even if it's buttoned, it kind of looks quite different than having like a proper sort of tight neck, crew neck or whatever vest. So yeah, I thought it made more sense to go with a more different pattern. So yeah, this is how far I've got. So I have basically knit most of it. You start at the back, I think. So it's top down. You do the hem as you finish at the bottom there. So there's nice sort of chunky 2x2 ribbon hem. And then I did the armbands. So you pick up and just do quite a narrow ribbing on the armbands. This obviously hasn't been blocked, so that's why it's kind of all a bit curled up. So yeah, I've done arms, and now I've just got to do the neckband. And I think again, this is where it didn't seem very fun. Like, it just seemed a bit like, oh, this is gonna be a headache. What I don't like about picking up is that you don't pick up, like, or you don't tend to pick up one for one. So, you know, you don't pick up one stitch in one row. It tends to say, you know, pick up 3 and 4, or, you know, whatever. And that like stresses me out because it's sort of, in my mind, it's like, well, how will that ever look even as you go along? Like, and I know it works, you know, and it like, nobody's looking at that, like, you can't tell how you've picked it up, but in my mind, I just don't trust myself to follow that rule and make it look like equal. So I think that's just like, yeah, the way that my brain works. So yeah, all I need to do is pick up that bloody neckband, that collar band and make some buttons. So completely inspired by We Grow Wild, which is a lovely YouTube channel. Her and her partner make buttons from just offcuts of wood. So I chose this. I saved this from our the logs that we burn, because I quite liked the diameter. I thought it's the right kind of scale. This makes perfect sense, right? So what I'm planning on doing is like sawing discs out of this and sand it, I guess. I don't really know. I'm just gonna wing it. So yeah. So collar band, make some buttons, block it, wear it and be happy. So yeah, there's no reason why this shouldn't be done in like a day or two maximum. So we'll see if I can prioritise this or not. Oh, I'll show you the yarn. I've got some balls wound up. Yeah, it just makes me really, really happy, this yarn. I also have one other finished object, but I don't have it with me. But I'll add some extra footage. There's not a lot to say about it other than I knit my partner a hat. So it was the motivation was slightly selfish, in that I had made a load of this yarn and was trying to sell it at like a market stall, and we were sort of, we're stood there in the freezing cold, not wearing any of the stuff that I'm trying to sell on the table, and it just felt so daft. Like, I was even wearing a scarf that I don't think was even wool. Like, there's me kind of going, wool's the best, like everyone needs to be covered in wool, and I wasn't even covered in wool. So I decided that I should take some of the yarn that I'd spun and make Matt a hat. I was going to make me a hat as well, but I haven't done that yet. So that we could go, hey, this is what you could make with this lovely wool. So yeah, I will show you the result of that. Came out lovely. Kind of just went for a typical ribbed brim. Can't even remember what size ribbing it is. You'll see from the video. And then just plain stockinette. I ended up making the top slightly nipply, which is just amusing us quite a lot. You can kind of like pull it down more on your head, and then the nipple kind of like flans. But yeah, I think it's just to do with like those last couple of rounds of decreases. I think I just took it too sharp, maybe. But yeah, I'll worry about that next time I need to knit another hat, and I'll actually look up some recipes maybe and see how to make a nice smooth top. Right, so that's the same yarn as this. I also like the idea of being stood on a market stall wearing this with the yarn then in front. I just think it'll be one of those really like eye-catching pieces. So yeah, right, let me figure out where we're up to. Okay, I've only got 2 more projects to talk about today, and then I think I'll record again tomorrow or something. I am also losing light, although can you see that nice glow we've got behind us that's coming through from the skylight? It's really nice. I'm filming in my bedroom, by the way, just so that there are more floors between me and Matt. Like, I just get really paranoid if I know he can hear me talking. So I'm in the loft basically, and he's downstairs. So that's why we're here. Also, I tidied, so we need to make the most of that. Right, we're going to talk about another Handspun project. So, and it's really not going to make any sense at this stage. So, this is what I've got so far. So this is the back panel, and then we're coming round a side. This is, my head is where the armhole will be. And then this is one of the front panels. So this is the Penguono pattern by Stephen West. It's the whole point of it is a scrappy project basically. He kind of encourages you to just throw everything in. So I was inspired by Rachel of Minimalist Machinist. I think it was when she first started talking about the pattern that my ears pricked up, because she was trying to use her stash, and I remember then going through the Ravelry projects for this pattern, and I'm really not drawn to kind of the crazy colours and the sort of like really big statement things, but I saw some really nicely done versions where it was kind of like, you know, the colours were all in the same palette, or it kind of, you know, had more of the natural colours, and I was like, oh no, that I can make sense of, like that I can see myself wearing. And it was at this time where I just got into the spinning properly, and I'd just been picking up sample fleeces from all over the place, you know, just 50-gram bags of different things to have a go with, and I just ended up with this basket of stuff that was basically too short to really do much else with, and I was like, okay, all right, maybe it wants to go in this kind of project. But also I'd not actually knit with any of my handspun at this point, and I remember kind of reading stuff, people going, you know, knit with your handspun as soon as possible, you know, because you want to get that feedback, like you want to actually, you know, have that experience in your hands and your eyes of, you know, well, this making this yarn like this knits up like this, and I think you've just got to do it really to know. My other issue is that I didn't believe that the yarn I was producing was consistent enough to knit with. I thought, like, I'm a perfectionist, like I'm very hard on myself, and so I was looking at the yarn just going, oh no, I've got to wait till, you know, I've got this yarn which is like, you know, my singles are just perfectly consistent, which is mad, because it's like, if you wanted that, why would you worry about handspun? Like, you would just buy commercial yarn at that point if you were aiming for such consistency. Like, I think really we should be embracing with handspun those variations, because you can't get those variations in commercial yarn. So yeah, so I thought, okay, like, what have I got to lose? Like, you start with the back panel, and I thought, well, I'll just do, you know, effectively, was it that side, or I think, I don't know if I started in the middle and then knit both ways or something, but yeah, I like just, you know, knit the first rectangle and was like, oh my god, this is actually a really nice fabric. So yeah, I mean, in particular, that back panel, that's all the first stuff, and as I say, it's just a complete mixture of breeds, like Corriedale, Shetland, Ryland, I can't think what else went into it. Of course I didn't take notes, so I can't tell you. Like, wouldn't it have been cool if I like drew myself a picture of the cardigan and then like sort of coloured in the diagram and labelled it? That would have been interesting, but alas. So yeah, so I started this project, and then I think I quite quickly ran out of Handspun, ran out of, you know, all of these like little 50-gram bits and bobs. So then I had to actually spin stuff to go into it, like specially. But that's where it then got quite interesting, because then I sort of started to realise that I could choose what to do with the colours, which is kind of a good and a bad thing. At the beginning I was trying to be quite loose with it and be quite freeing with it, which is something that Rachel talked about when she made hers, where she was trying to let go of kind of like having to have a plan, having to figure out where all the colours are going to go before you've even started. And I was like, no, I'm gonna let go of that. I'm just gonna, you know, just keep knitting on it. But then obviously I then had to start doing some planning because I had to then make the yarn. So anyway, I started then adding bits. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this because it's so curled up. But there's this like funny welt section that goes, sorry, it's orientated that way, along the back. And so like I did 3 different colours of Jacobs. Sort of we go from dark to light. I think you can just see it there. And matched it on both sides. So this is then me just picking out bits of the fleece and sort of going, well, I want this mostly dark, mostly light, and somewhere in the middle. So that was a really good part of my like spinning journey, learning development, to kind of go, well, what mix of dark and light gives me what result. So that was a lot of fun. And then kind of I took that to another level when I got to the front. So again, this front panel is all Jacobs, and again I wanted to just play with the colour variations. So you can kind of see how sometimes it's a real block change, but then other times it's more subtle and we kind of got streaks and stuff. But yeah, I kind of, where I got to with this was, yeah, I'd had to spin for the back, I then spun for that front section, and then I needed to spin more, like I ran out. But as I was saying at the start of the video, this is where the timing, you know, I then started to try and turn sort of fibre production into a business, so all my spinning time went into that rather than into my own projects. But I did today start spinning some more, so something like this, so that I can have kind of 2 complementary front panels. I should also say that this project has also suffered from that thing of like gauge. God knows. I think the pattern. Oh no, I'm not gonna guess. I'm not gonna guess what the gauge was for the pattern, but I ended up kind of just going, like I grabbed one of my ready to wear cardigans and lay it out on the floor and was like, okay, I want the, you know, back section to now come out the same width as this. Right, where's the, you know, what's my armhole depth, what would be quite nice. So yeah, once again I turned what could have been quite a simple thing of just following the pattern has turned into another, well yeah, you're kind of going to follow the pattern, but also all of the numbers you now have to question, which is just, yeah, not what you want when you're tired and it's like 7 o'clock at night and you just want to do bit of knitting and watch TV. So that's, yeah, so they're all of my excuses for why this poor thing has just been sat in a basket. But yeah, as I say, I am in the middle of spinning up some more Jacobs for it, so hopefully I can make a bit more progress on that because I really want to wear it. I've just had a wardrobe clear out, and basically got rid of all my cardigans because they were all polyester basically, and I've just become more and more sensitive to wearing polyester. Like I just find myself getting really hot and I just feel gross when I'm wearing plastic. So I now have no cardigan, so I really could do with this one. I just feel like it's gonna be that perfect, like really big, oversized, you know, you just chuck it on in the morning, like, and just like a dressing gown, but something that you could go out the house in as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep working on that in this new year. So I'll keep you updated. I promise I'll keep you updated. Right, one last thing to talk about today. And this is like a complete switch up. I feel like you won't expect this. Right, when I first started to get back into knitting as an adult, so I don't know, like 5 years ago or something, I, like most people, got drawn into the We Are Knitted stuff, and I bought 2 of their kits. So I'll show you this one. So what's it called? Orchid sweater. So I got it in this gorgeous olive green. So I'll show you the ball band. So yeah, We Are Knitters, the cotton. So it's 100% Peruvian Pima cotta. It's very silky. So yeah, I bought this, never made it, and then kind of like I fell like I realised that I didn't really enjoy the We Are Knitted stuff, that where like most of it is basically just knit some rectangles and then seam them together. I really don't like that kind of knitting at all. Like I'm much happier knitting in the round, knitting seamless. As you now know, I don't like to pick up stitches. So I've got no interest in knitting that sweater anymore. But over the summer, I was sort of assessing my stash of yarns, and I was like, okay, can I do something with this? And I've been seeing everybody making these lovely summer tops, and I was just like, okay, well I have some cotton, like it's, you know, I like the colour, like I think like it's sort of, it looks nice with my skin and hair colour maybe. So yeah, I thought let's look for a pattern. And it was, oh god, I think it was the lovely lady from We Grow Wild again. She made the Leafinity top. There's a top version and then like a split, like button up version as well. And I thought, I'm going to try making that. It's not something I would normally get drawn to, but well, I was just like, oh, let's give it a go. Like it's a lace sort of textured thing. I can show you how far I got. So there we go. So it's basically it's all over this lace pattern, front and back. So I found it very challenging to begin with, because I'd never done lace and I'd never read like a lace chart, or I'm not sure I'd even ever really worked charts in knitting, so I had no idea how to read it. And when I like just tried, like I just got so muddled about which things, you know, how many knits was that, and like what does that symbol mean? Like I just made such a mess of it. So I had to start this a few times, but I think I finally cracked it. So yeah, I got this far, and again, maybe I've had a bit of fun with gauge. That seems to be my theme. But I tried it on whilst it was at this length, and it just was tighter than I wanted. I kind of liked the idea of it being quite a flowy kind of light and airy thing, whereas yeah, when I had it, tried it on, it sort of like it was almost like a boob tube, like it kind of was quite snug over my chest, and I was like, I don't know. So I stopped working on it. Thinking about it now, I'm very suspicious that because this is such a sort of shiny, slippery cotton, that I think this is actually going to grow. Like, and even blocking the lace work, that's probably going to grow. So I think I should probably just carry on and just see what happens. I think my only concern now is that I don't know how well I took notes and whether I'll know where I'm up to in the pattern. I also have stolen the needles off it, so did I write down what needle size I used? Maybe. Maybe not. So yeah, so that'll be interesting. I probably might just leave this for next spring, summer. You know, for those days where it's like just a bit too warm to have wool, like to be working on with wool. Yeah, I think we'll just put this back in the bag for a bit. So yeah, that's basically everything that I've worked on that isn't socks this past year. So like, I feel like if you watch Inga Knitting Traditions, I feel like that will have been her talking about the last month. But that was my 12 months. But that's fine. I'm not saying that, you know, either of us are right or wrong. I just find it quite funny, like how much knitting some people get done. Right, well, I'm nearly sat in the dark. The camera looks fine, so I'm hoping that I'm not going to put this on the computer and realise that it's you can't see me at all, but it looks alright. So yeah, I am going to stop there for today. Socks will be coming soon. I'm hoping to kind of, yeah, get these kind of like reflection videos done sort of fairly quickly, so that I can kind of then move on to, I was going to say like proper content, but I mean this is legit content, but it's just, I think I've got so many ideas of things to work on, mainly with like the spinning and the weaving, that I'm just really excited to document that and share it. But I just feel like I want to like almost like bring you all up to speed. Like I just kind of want you to kind of like, I want you and me to all be on the same page as we're going into 2023, so you know where I'm at, you know what I'm aiming for, and like when I show you things, you know the backstory, you know what's happening. I don't know who I think I am, but yeah, hopefully you're excited for this. Right, I'm gonna go because I'm just getting awkward and rambly. So yeah, I'll see you next time.